The attic smelled of time. Not dust, not decay, but time itself. Ethan stood in the doorway, flashlight trembling slightly in his hand. The light cut through layers of darkness, revealing boxes stacked like silent memories waiting to be opened. Every step he took made the old floorboards sigh beneath his boots. He hadn't been here since his father's funeral. The house had been locked for years, untouched like a wound no one wanted to reopen. But now, the lawyer's voice still echoed in his head. "Sell it or keep it, Mr. Cole. Either way, it's yours now." Ethan didn't feel like it was his. Nothing about this place felt familiar, not the crooked frames on the walls, not the faint smell of pine and smoke that lingered in the corners. Everything looked like a stranger's memory. He brushed a layer of dust from a wooden trunk and coughed. It was filled with old clothes and letters, the kind of things you keep when you think you'll come back someday. But his flashlight caught something different in the far corner of the attic. A smaller box. Wooden. Carved. Ethan hesitated, wiping his palms against his jeans. The box looked handmade, old yet cared for. What made him freeze wasn't its shape, or even the heavy brass latch. It was the word carved across the lid, deep, uneven letters. ETHAN. For a long moment he just stared. His heart began to thud. He didn't remember this. He didn't remember ever owning such a thing. He crouched beside it, tracing the letters with his thumb. The wood was cold to the touch, too cold for the attic's stale heat. Something about it made his stomach twist. "Dad?" he whispered, his voice sounding smaller than he meant it to. Only the silence answered back. He lifted the latch. It groaned like something ancient waking up. Inside, nothing. Empty. Only a small piece of folded paper resting in the corner. Ethan exhaled shakily, almost laughing at himself, until he noticed the handwriting. It was his. He unfolded the paper. The edges were yellowed, fragile, as if it had been waiting for years. There were only 5 words written in faded ink. "You weren't supposed to find this." His chest tightened. He turned the note over, half expecting more, but the back was blank. The room suddenly felt heavier. The air colder. His flashlight flickered once, twice, then steadied again. He backed away from the box slowly, almost afraid to look away from it. The wooden floor creaked as if something shifted behind him. He froze. For a second, he could have sworn he heard footsteps, faint, dragging, somewhere above him. But that made no sense. There was nothing above the attic. The sound stopped. The silence returned. Ethan stood there for a long time, staring at the box with his name. A cold wind whispered through the broken window pane, scattering dust into the beam of his flashlight. The paper inside the box fluttered once, as if breathing. He turned to leave, telling himself it was nothing, just the wind, just his nerves. But as he reached the door, the flashlight flickered again, and in that brief second of darkness, he heard it clearly this time. A voice, soft and close to his ear. "Don't open it again." That night, Ethan tried to convince himself it was nothing, just nerves, exhaustion, and the sound of an old house breathing. Yet, sleep never really came. Every time his eyes began to close, the wind moaned across the attic above him, and the memory of that whisper, "Don't open it again," replayed in his head like an echo. The house felt alive. He lay in bed staring at the ceiling, the wooden beams faintly visible in the glow of a flickering lamp. Somewhere beyond them, something creaked, slow, deliberate. Not random. Not wind. Footsteps. Ethan sat up. The sound stopped. He listened hard, holding his breath. The air was still. Then, creak, creak, directly above him. He grabbed the flashlight from the nightstand, its light slicing through the dark as he climbed the narrow staircase to the attic. The air grew colder with every step. The smell of dust and pine returned, heavier now, sharper. When he reached the top, the attic looked exactly as he left it. The box sat in the corner, still open, the note lying where he'd dropped it. But there was something else. A small, old-fashioned tape recorder sat on the floor near the box. He didn't remember seeing it before. Its red record light blinked faintly, dying, but still alive. Ethan knelt beside it. The tape inside was labeled in faded pen, June 21st. No year. No explanation. He pressed play. Static filled the room. A slow, grainy hiss that made his skin crawl. For a moment, there was nothing, just noise. Then, faintly, a man's voice broke through. "Don't dig further, Ethan." Ethan's blood ran cold. It was his father's voice. He hit pause, his hand trembling. Maybe it was some old recording. His dad used to keep voice logs, right? Maybe it was that. But why was it here, beside a box that shouldn't even exist? He pressed play again. The static deepened, rising and falling like breath. Then, another voice spoke, softer, but unmistakable. His own. I found it." Ethan dropped the recorder. It hit the floor, the tape whirring backward on its own, then stopping with a sharp click. The red light blinked once more before dying completely. He backed away, heart pounding so loud it drowned out the silence. For a second, he thought he saw movement in the far corner, a shadow darker than the rest, shaped like someone standing. But when he turned the flashlight there, the corner was empty. The note inside the box had moved. It was lying closer to him now, the paper open. He didn't remember touching it. He picked it up. The handwriting had changed, newer ink, fresher lines. Under the original words, something new was written. "Stop listening." Ethan's throat tightened. His flashlight flickered again, and for the briefest instant he saw something reflected in the attic window, a figure standing behind him. He spun around. No one there. But the air had changed, heavier, charged, like someone had just whispered in his ear. He shut the box, grabbed the recorder, and rushed downstairs. He didn't stop until he was back in his room, door locked, heart still racing. He turned on every light, telling himself it was over, that it was all in his head. Then, from the attic above, a soft click. The recorder had started playing again. Morning sunlight crept weakly through the curtains, cutting thin lines across Ethan's floor. For a moment, he thought everything from last night had been a dream, the whispers, the tape, the box. But the feeling in the air told him otherwise. The house felt different. So expectant. He forced himself to go back to the attic, half hoping the box wouldn't be there. But it was right where he'd left it. Only now the lid was closed. The note that once lay inside was gone. Ethan hesitated, his hand trembling as he opened it again. This time, there was something new. A photograph. Old, slightly faded, tucked carefully inside the box. He lifted it out, his breath catching when he saw what it showed. A little boy standing in the front yard of this very house, the same tilted porch railing behind him. The boy looked 6, maybe 7. His hair, his eyes, his expression. It was him. At least, it looked exactly like him. But there was a man beside the boy, tall, smiling faintly, a shadow falling across his face. Ethan stared hard, trying to recognize him. It wasn't his father. Not even close. The man's features were soft, unfamiliar, but the way his hand rested on the boy's shoulder felt disturbingly intimate, like family. He turned the photograph over. On the back, in shaky handwriting, were 6 words. Summer, 1998. The day we buried it. Ethan's heart pounded. Buried what? He whispered to no one. He searched the box again. No note, no tape, nothing but the photograph. His mind raced. 1998. He would have been 7 years old. That same year, his father stopped taking photos, stopped talking about his mother, stopped letting him near the attic. Coincidence, he told himself. It had to be. Still, his hands wouldn't stop shaking. He set the photograph down and took a shaky breath. Okay, he muttered, it's just old family stuff. That's all. The floor creaked behind him. He turned instantly. The attic was empty. But his flashlight beam caught something strange. The faint outline of footprints in the dust, leading away from the box toward the far corner, where the boards met the wall. He followed them slowly. The air grew colder the closer he got. He crouched down and ran his fingers along the baseboard. Something thin and metallic scratched his skin, a nail half pulled out. Behind it, a small gap. A hidden compartment. Ethan pried it open with the edge of his flashlight. The wood gave way with a dry groan. Inside was a folded newspaper clipping, brittle with age. The headline read, "Local boy declared missing, presumed dead." There was no photo, no details, just a name. Ethan Cole. He stared at it in disbelief. Same name. Same house. Same year, 1998. His hands went numb. The attic light flickered once, then twice. The photograph on the floor fluttered, as though someone had blown across it. Ethan looked down. The picture had changed. The boy and the man were gone. The image now showed Ethan himself, asleep in bed, the same bed he'd been lying in last night. He stumbled back, dropping the photo. His breath came fast and shallow. From somewhere beneath the floorboards, faint and muffled, came a new sound. A woman's voice, crying. Ethan hadn't slept again. The image of the photograph, changing before his eyes, played over and over in his mind. The woman's muffled crying from beneath the floor still echoed in his ears long after it had stopped. Morning came heavy and gray, the air thick with rain. He needed answers. Someone in this quiet, forgotten street had to know something about this house, about 1998, about that missing boy with his name. Only one person came to mind. Mrs. Dalton. She had lived next door since before he was born, a kind woman once, now rarely seen outside. His father used to warn him not to bother her, calling her unwell, but right now, she was the only link to the past he had left. Ethan crossed the yard, each step sinking into wet grass. The sky hung low, rumbling faintly. When he reached her porch, he hesitated before knocking. The house looked half asleep, curtains drawn, porch lights still flickering even in daylight. The door creaked open slowly. Mrs. Dalton stood there, wrapped in a faded shawl. Her eyes, pale and unfocused, blinked twice before narrowing in on him. "You look just like him," she whispered. Ethan swallowed. "Like who?" She didn't answer right away. Instead, she stepped aside. "Come in." The living room smelled of old flowers and dust. Dozens of photographs lined the walls, but every frame faced down, turned away. A small radio played softly in the corner, though the station was nothing but static. "I'm sorry to bother you," Ethan said quietly. I moved back into my father's house. I found something in the attic. A box. With my name on it." At that, Mrs. Dalton's hand trembled. The teacup she was holding rattled against its saucer. "You shouldn't have opened that," she said, her voice thin and brittle. Ethan leaned forward. "What do you know about it?" She looked up, her eyes glassy but sharp. "You were such a curious boy, both of you were." He frowned. "Both?" Her lips pressed into a trembling line. "There were two of you. For a while." Ethan's pulse quickened. "That's not possible." "Oh, it is." Her voice broke slightly. "The police came that summer. After the storm. Your mother screamed so much they said she'd lost her mind. But when they searched, they found nothing. No body. No report ever filed. And your father, he made sure it stayed that way." Ethan felt dizzy, the room tilting. "Who was the other boy?" Mrs. Dalton didn't answer. She stared past him suddenly, her face draining of color. Her teacup slipped from her hand and shattered on the floor. Her eyes widened, trembling. "He's standing right behind you." Ethan turned sharply, but there was no one there. Only the doorway, empty. When he looked back, Mrs. Dalton was clutching her chest, breathing hard. "You need to leave that house," she rasped. "Before he remembers." Ethan tried to calm her, but she shook her head violently. "Go," she screamed. "Go before it's too late." He backed away, heart pounding, rain slamming against the windows. As he reached the porch, she called out one last time, her voice breaking through the thunder. "He's not gone, Ethan. He's still there. Under the floor." Rain hammered the roof all night, drowning out everything but Ethan's thoughts. Mrs. Dalton's words looped endlessly in his head. "He's still there. Under the floor." He sat at the kitchen table long after midnight, staring at the recorder and the photographs spread out before him. The image hadn't changed again, but somehow, that made it worse, like it was waiting for him to move first. He couldn't stop thinking about the attic. About what lay beneath it. By 2 a.m. he'd made up his mind. Ethan climbed the narrow stairs, the flashlight beam trembling in his grip. The air grew colder the higher he went, carrying the faint, metallic scent of rain seeping through the roof. The attic greeted him with silence, thick, patient, almost aware. He crossed to the far corner, where the footprints in the dust had stopped before. He knelt down and ran his hand along the boards. The wood felt different here, softer, hollow. He found a small hammer in a box of old tools and began to pry the boards loose, one by one. The sound echoed through the empty house, each pull revealing a deeper patch of darkness beneath. After the third plank, his flashlight caught something, a glint of metal. A latch. His pulse quickened as he pulled it open. Inside was a small compartment lined with rotting cloth, and resting within it, an old leather-bound journal. Its cover was cracked and blackened with age, the initials EC barely visible across the front. Ethan hesitated before opening it. The first page was written in his father's handwriting. For Ethan. So he'll remember. His breath caught. The entries that followed weren't his father's, though they were written by someone else. The same name signed every page, Ethan Cole. The first entry dated back to June 1998. He says I'm the lucky one. That he chose me. But I can still hear him in the walls at night. I think he wants to come back. Ethan's hands trembled. The next page was worse, scrawled words, frantic and smeared. They said he wasn't real. But he looks like me. Talks like me. He even cries the same. I think Dad made a choice. Lightning flashed through the attic window, illuminating the room in cold blue light. The shadows danced across the walls like something alive. Ethan kept reading, his voice barely above a whisper. He made a choice. The later pages grew unreadable, ink blurred by water stains, torn corners missing whole sentences. But one final entry near the back stopped him cold. If you're reading this, it means I lost. Ethan's heart pounded. His breath came in short gasps. He dropped the book. It hit the floor with a dull thud, kicking up a cloud of dust. Somewhere beneath him, the wood creaked. He froze. A whisper rose through the floorboards, faint, rasping, like someone speaking through the walls. You shouldn't have read that. The attic light flickered violently. The box across the room slid an inch on its own. Ethan stumbled back toward the stairs, the journal still open behind him. The pages fluttered as though something unseen had breathed across them. The last page turned on its own. In fresh ink, words that hadn't been there seconds ago. Look in the mirror. Ethan's reflection waited for him downstairs. Ethan stumbled down the attic steps, clutching the flashlight like a weapon. Every creak in the wood felt deliberate, as if the house itself was breathing. The journal's final words burned in his mind. Look in the mirror. He reached the hallway, heart hammering. The air smelled faintly of smoke and old varnish, though nothing burned. The mirror at the end of the corridor had been there for years, tall, antique, its edges webbed with age. He'd passed it 1,000 times without thought. But tonight, it felt alive. He stopped 3 feet away, the beam of his flashlight trembling across the glass. His reflection stared back, pale, eyes sunken, a face carved by fear. For a moment, it seemed normal. Then, almost imperceptibly, the reflection blinked, slower than he did. Ethan froze. He lifted his hand. The reflection hesitated, just a fraction of a second, but enough to send a chill crawling down his spine. No, he whispered. That's not possible. The light flickered. The house groaned again. He took a cautious step closer. Behind his reflection, the hallway looked the same, except the attic door in the mirror was open. In reality, it was shut. Turned. The real door was closed tight, sealed in darkness. But in the mirror, he could see movement. A shape shifting just beyond the doorway. He felt the temperature drop. The air thickened, heavy with something unseen. His reflection began to smile, slow, deliberate, wrong. Ethan stumbled back. What are you? The reflection tilted its head, and for a heartbeat, its lips moved, but no sound came out. Instead, Ethan heard it inside his head. You read what wasn't meant for you. He gripped the edge of a table for balance, trying to steady his breath. You're not real, he said through clenched teeth. The reflection moved closer to the glass, its face darkening in the dim light. The grin widened until it looked almost human, almost familiar. Neither was he, the voice echoed. Lightning burst through the window again, and for a single, blinding instant, the reflection vanished. replaced by a different image. A boy. Younger Ethan. Sitting in that same attic. Holding the same journal. Ethan blinked, stepping forward. That can't be me. But the boy looked up, his eyes hollow and empty. Then he whispered something Ethan could barely hear. He never left, Ethan. He just needed you to remember. The mirror surface rippled like water, and Ethan's reflection returned, but now, it wasn't copying him. It leaned closer, hand pressing against the glass from the other side. Ethan's flashlight dimmed until only the faint glow from the hallway remained. He couldn't move. Couldn't speak. The reflection's hand pressed harder, and the glass began to bend. A small crack appeared at the center. Then another. The reflection whispered one final line, voice low and guttural. You opened the box. Now let me out. The mirror shattered, but instead of falling, the shards hung suspended in the air, catching flashes of faces that weren't his. Ethan stumbled back, crashing into the wall. When the glass finally fell, the reflection was gone. Only one shard remained intact, lying face up, showing his own eyes staring back. But they blinked first. Ethan didn't sleep that night. He couldn't. The mirror lay shattered across the floor, its pieces reflecting fragments of his face from every angle. Each shard caught the dim glow of dawn creeping through the curtains, and for a moment he thought they were breathing. He sat on the edge of the couch, clutching the journal like it might explain what had just happened. His thoughts looped between fear and denial, each one louder than the last. The whispers hadn't returned. But the silence was worse. By noon, Ethan forced himself to stand. His reflection, or whatever it had become, hadn't appeared since the glass broke. But he could still feel something watching him. He turned the last few pages of the journal, scanning the half-faded words. The ink trailed off mid-sentence, but in the margin, someone had scribbled something faintly, like an afterthought. The truth is buried twice. Once by him. Once by me. Ethan frowned. Buried where? He whispered. He grabbed his coat and stepped outside. The sky was a dull gray, clouds sagging low over the house. Mrs. Dalton's window across the street was shut tight. No movement. No sound. The entire neighborhood seemed to hold its breath. He circled the house, following an instinct he couldn't explain. The soil near the back fence looked disturbed, not recent, but uneven. Like something had been dug up years ago and never quite settled. His hands shook as he dropped to his knees and began clawing at the dirt. The cold earth bit into his skin, clinging beneath his nails. A few inches down, his fingers struck wood. He froze. Pulling the rest of the dirt away, he revealed a small wooden box, identical to the one he'd found in the attic, but older, darker, soaked through with age. Its metal latch had rusted shut. He carried it inside, placing it on the table beside the broken mirror. The latch broke easily under pressure. Inside, there was no photograph, no letter, only a small reel of audio tape. The label was nearly gone, but two words were still visible. The choice. Ethan stared at it, pulse quickening. He didn't own a tape player anymore, but he remembered one, in the basement. His father's old one, stored with the rest of the junk he'd never thrown away. The basement was colder than he remembered. The air was thick with dust and a faint metallic tang, like rust and old blood. He plugged in the player and pressed play. Crackle. Then a voice. If you're hearing this, Ethan, you've remembered too much. Ethan's breath caught. It was his father's voice. He needed a body. I didn't know which of you he'd choose. I tried to stop him, but it's too late now. If you found this, he's awake again. The tape word, then cut to silence. Ethan stumbled back, heart racing. His reflection hadn't been another version of him. It had been the other one. The one his father spoke about in the journal. The one that had been waiting. He looked toward the mirror shards scattered on the floor. One of them was moving. The shard quivered on the table, spinning slowly until it pointed toward the hallway, toward the door that led beneath the house. Ethan stared at it, every instinct screaming don't follow, yet his feet moved anyway. The basement light flickered when he pulled the cord. Dust floated like ash in the air. The scent of damp wood and rot pressed against his lungs. He could still hear his father's voice from the tape echoing in his mind. He needed a body. Each step down the stairs groaned beneath his weight. The deeper he went, the colder it became, until his breath came out in visible clouds. Something dripped in the darkness, steady, rhythmic, like a clock counting down. He swept his flashlight across the concrete floor. The beam stopped on a corner where the earth jutted upward, cracked and uneven. A section of dirt was darker than the rest, the pattern circular as though something, or someone, had been buried there long ago. He knelt, running his fingers through the loose soil. It was soft, recently disturbed. A whisper stirred near his ear. "You remember now, don't you?" Ethan spun, flashlight shaking. Nothing there. Just the hum of the furnace and the low creak of the house breathing. He swallowed hard. "Who are you?" The voice came again, layered, partly his, partly something else. "You already know." His heart pounded. "No. You're not real." The flashlight dimmed. The shadows thickened. From the cracked patch of earth, a faint red glow seeped through the soil. Ethan grabbed a shovel leaning against the wall and began to dig, the sound of metal striking dirt echoing through the basement like thunder. Each scoop sent up a wave of cold air, smelling of rust and decay. A few feet down, the shovel hit wood. He dropped to his knees and brushed away the dirt. Beneath it lay a wooden lid, small, human-sized, its surface warped and splintered. He pried it open. Inside wasn't bone, but cloth. Torn, stained fabric wrapped tightly around something solid. He reached in and pulled it free, a bundle heavy and cold. The wrapping fell away. A mirror. Not shattered, not cracked, perfect. Its surface shimmered with a faint pulse, like a living heartbeat. Ethan stumbled back, breath ragged. No, not again. In the glass, a figure stared back. His reflection, but younger, cleaner, untouched by sleepless nights or guilt. The other Ethan smiled. "I've been waiting," the reflection said. The mirror trembled in his hands, vibrating with low, animal energy. The red glow from beneath the soil brightened, illuminating faint carvings along the wooden edges, symbols his father had drawn in the margins of the journal. They weren't meant to protect. They were meant to contain. Ethan dropped the mirror. It didn't break. Instead, it floated an inch above the dirt, humming softly. Then the voice returned, his father's, faint and desperate. "If he finds the grave, he'll finish what I couldn't stop." Ethan's stomach turned. Finish what? The reflection in the hovering glass leaned forward. Its eyes were hollow, endless. Bury the wrong one. The floor beneath him groaned, then cracked. The dirt shifted, collapsing inward. A deep, empty space opened beneath the house, wide enough to swallow him whole. Ethan fell to his knees, gripping the edge as the mirror descended into the pit, its glow flickering like a dying heartbeat. Then the whisper came one last time, closer than before. "You're digging in the wrong grave, Ethan." And something reached up from the darkness to grab his wrist.